This is my lightning strike, like my fourth one, I think. My PICO is in children with obesity. Does the weight gain occur from physical or mental reasons? Does participation in sports help prevent obesity? Which is kind of like obvious, but whatever. And what are the risks if these children continue to gain weight? For the introduction, at the beginning of the 21st century, obesity was officially classified as a metabolic disease by the World Health Organization, and they refer to it as a global epidemic. Obesity is the most common health problem that children face now in the 21st century, and the most significant long-term consequences of obesity are adult obesity, which then goes into like different diseases and issues adults with obesity have. For example, type 2 diabetes, arterial hypertension, cardiovascular disease, obesity hypoventilation syndrome, and obstructive sleep apnea syndrome. Currently, about 3 million people can be considered as obese, and due to the rising trend in obesity, this figure will probably double by 2025, which is excessive. If no action is taken to prevent this, even more children and more adults than so will become obese. The most recent data from the National Health and Nutrition Examination Survey suggests that about 22% of children and adolescents now are overweight, and that 11% are actually obese. The causes are pretty varied, from the environment in which the child is raised to the mental stimulation the child receives, whether at school or at home. On the simplest level, obesity is an excessive intake of calories, and our current environment provides an unlimited amount of calories at a very cheap price, such as McDonald's and Burger King and the like. The complex family and community level factors that affect obesity are often in regards of the children's decision making and how it's not their own decisions that they feed on, and that feeds into energy intake and energy expenditure. A significantly decreased risk of obesity in children whose mothers had low BMIs, and increased risk of children developing obesity whose mothers were overweight or obese. So if you think the mother feeds the child what the mother eats. So if the mother does not have good eating habits, she will not pass those along to her child, and in the end, the child will become overweight or obese. Children whose family incomes were very low also had an increased risk for obesity. And so you think, okay, McDonald's, you can get 5 hamburgers for $5, or if you go to Food Lion and you can get a thing of hamburger meat and that's it for $5. What's easier? And there was no really emotional reasoning found in one of the studies I looked at that contributed to childhood obesity. It was more like physical factors and not like emotional. Although if you watch like My 600-Pound Life, it's all emotional. Everybody's so emotional. The child characteristics and behaviors, some are genetically predisposed for energy intake, but these can be counteracted by not being sedentary. or having more physical activity. Just because you have a genetically low metabolic rate does not mean that you will immediately become obese. Overall, parenting styles and family characteristics had the highest influence on children's intake of energy and influencing the child's behavior, and this has long-term effects, as we can discuss further. Overall, the main causes are the environment in which the child is raised in. And such environment, they don't get out of that until about 18. So you think 18 years of living the same way, they're not going to change like that. There's something bigger going on here. Prevention methods mostly look at educating the adults and the children on correct portion sizes and the amount of energy expenditure that they're following through within the week and such, and also not doing like the passive overeating, like sitting in front of a TV for hours on end just snacking on chips. Like it's not where we want you to be. They want to foster a preference for less energy-dense foods in children. So instead of the chips, why not carrot sticks? Or instead of like Cheetos, why not broccoli? Like better things for you. Just don't eat crap. The biggest one is an appropriate level of physical activity, because, okay, you can eat whatever you want, but as long as you work it off, you're not fat. The recent World Health Organization global recommendation on physical activity for children and adolescents is at least 60 minutes every day, an hour every day. And that's not that much time, and it could help prevent obesity on an extreme level. Results also indicated that children raised in high levels of cognitive stimulation have the lowest rates of developing obesity after they move on to living on their own. Overall, there is scientific evidence that regular physical activity reduces total mortality risk from obesity. In conclusion to the PICO, it is more the physical environment that the child is raised in than the mental stress or lack of stress that they undergo. It is literally what they are able to ingest more than such mental health issues. And that's all.